Today's prayer vigil was scheduled before the video emerged of the execution of the journalist Stephen Sotloff, but how timely it has been bringing together leaders from the Christian, Jewish and Muslim faiths. Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, told me that Christians are deeply divided on whether to take military action, but on a personal note, he said he felt there are times when it could be justified. It's up to the government to decide whether that time is now. Amongst the crowd was Baroness Vazi, who resigned a few weeks ago over Gaza and was praised by the Archbishop for putting her principles before her career. She said we need to think seriously about airstrikes and condemned the barbaric acts carried out in the name of Islam. Archbishop Justin Welby, thank you very much for joining us this evening. How should we respond to the beheading of innocent men in the name of religion?
First of all, particularly journalists, but all of us are horrified by what happened to Stephen Sotloff. And this morning in the prayer meeting we had at Lambeth Palace with religious leaders from all over the area, we were praying for him and for his family, and for journalists who must feel that they've lost one of their colleagues. How do we respond? We respond by recognising the immense evil that we're facing. That this is, as someone said this morning, an almost unique evil. One of the religious leaders commented that there'd been nothing like this since 1260 and the invasion of Genghis Khan. And that makes a very extraordinary circumstance that we got to face, and it will take a huge and united response.
In terms of the response, there is pressure on President Obama and on David Cameron as to how they respond to this. Is there a tipping point where there is justification for military action? Is there ever a just case for war?
You'll find that Christians are deeply divided in that, and when we were discussing it this morning, again, we saw some of those divisions. The history of military intervention in the Middle East in recent years has caused great damage in many ways, as well as doing a lot of good in others. I think, personally, my personal view is there are moments when police action is justified, where it is demonstrable that it will alter the circumstances and change the facts on the ground so that peaceful solutions can be achieved. I'm totally unqualified to comment as to whether that's appropriate at the moment, and I wouldn't even begin to go there.
You talked last year about people getting hysterical about the radicalisation of young British Muslims. Do you think that you have changed your view on that, given the growing threat from the Islamic State?
I spoke about that very much in the sense of people beginning to look on every Muslim as a potential jihadist, and that is a hysterical overreaction. Yes, there is a very serious security problem. We've heard that extremely clearly. And yes, it requires determined action. But it also requires us to distinguish between the vast majority of Muslims who condemn this outright and those very, very small number who have got involved in these horrendous events. And the way in which we behave in this country must reflect our values, and above all, the Christian tradition we have in this country and the love of Christ which he calls us to show.
Is the British Muslim community doing enough to counter that threat of radicalisation?
All the Muslim leaders I know are doing everything they can, and they are in a terribly difficult situation.